Our theme this week is the theme of welcome. And this word can evoke many, many feelings in people. But I'm going to ask you to share, if you're in a group or if you're just by yourself, do some journaling and consider, what does it mean to you to receive a warm welcome? It can look a little different based on context. Receiving a warm welcome sets the stage for an encounter that we know will be gracious, that will be something that we will enjoy. One Christmas Eve, I noticed two young women enter into the sanctuary of the church that I was serving at the time. And as a pastor, you usually can recognize guests. They have a little bit of a nervous look to them. And also in smaller churches, I tend to know most of the folks who are walking through the door, so visitors are easy to spot. They made their way up kind of right into about the middle of the sanctuary and sat down and stayed for worship. And when worship was over, I approached them and asked what had brought them to worship that night. It's a common question I ask. I like to know what brought you into our building. What was the thing that we did that helped you know that you were welcome here? And after I asked them what brought them to church that night, one of the young women said that she had grown up in that town and that she had come back from the East Coast with her partner, and that while her entire family had gone to the church she grew up in that evening, she knew that she and her partner wouldn't be welcome at the church where she grew up. She said a little bit hesitantly, "I heard around town that we might be welcome here." And I assured her that they were absolutely welcome and that I was so excited that they had come to worship and that I was thrilled to have them there that evening. I then went on to say, "I hope that my folks have greeted you warmly." And they told me that nearly every single person in worship that night had welcomed them and had said that they hoped that they would come back the next time they were in town. Being welcomed is so incredibly important, no matter what we are being welcomed into. Whether we are hoping to have a good meal, whether we are hoping to have a great experience, whether we are hoping to encounter the divine, the welcome sets the stage. It's how we know, is this a safe place? And once we've established that it is a safe place, we can be welcomed into God's kingdom. It's unlikely that the prophet Zephaniah received warm welcomes wherever he went. He was frequently sharing messages of doom and gloom, and no one is ever all that excited to welcome that person into the party. But Zephaniah, nevertheless, was prophesying about a time when the people of Judah would return home from their exile in Babylon. He assures them that God is still with them, that God has not abandoned them, and that God will welcome them back into God's graces anytime they hope to come. Our text from Luke today features Mary and what is called the Magnificat, which means magnify. So when Mary says, "I will magnify the Lord, my soul will magnify the Lord," the Latin for that is Magnificat, which is why our passage in Luke today has come to be called the Magnificat, which is Latin for "my soul will magnify the Lord," one of the phrases that Mary uses in this passage. I don't know about you, but I'm not necessarily sure that this is the welcome that a deity deserves. Mary does not live in the lap of luxury. She is a young, poor, unwed teenager who's expecting her first child. She is in a culture that is dominated by patriarchal structures, and she is living in a country that is occupied by a foreign nation. I'm not really sure that this is the circumstances that I would choose to come into the world. I don't necessarily know if that's where I would feel the warmest welcome, and yet this is where God chooses to come to us. God chooses to come to humankind in this most unlikely of circumstances, despite the fact that this is not the warmest welcome humankind could provide for the divine. Mary's song of the Magnificat is welcoming God into the world. And she shares with us these amazing words of inspiration in which she assures all those who hear that God is coming to do something magnificent, unprecedented, and amazing in the world. She is welcoming the inbreaking of God's kingdom. In the book, I define feeling welcome with two distinct things: that we feel safe and that we feel wanted. If you've never had a situation in which you weren't sure whether you were going to be safe, I would suggest that you have lived a life where you were pretty lucky. Because for a lot of folks, that is an important part of this definition. Is it safe to be who I am? Is it safe to share who I am with the people in this environment? The second part, am I wanted, is obviously pretty self-explanatory. We all experience wanting to be included in groups of people, to know that we are welcome in that space. Originally, when I started to write this book, I also included comfort as a part of welcome. And then I came to realize that that is not always the case. Sometimes we can be welcomed into situations where, for whatever reason, we feel uncomfortable with what is going on simply because it's outside of our own realm of comfort or because it's another culture, whatever the case may be. And so while comfort may be a part of a warm welcome, sometimes discomfort is also a part of an excellent welcome from others. A part of being welcome is that we then turn around and extend that welcome to others, which is what we are called to do as we continue to build the kingdom of God. We aren't welcomed into God's kingdom simply to just be wanted, to be safe. We are welcomed into God's kingdom to then turn around and extend that welcome to others. So we are invited to consider, how are you extending that welcome into God's kingdom to others in your life, to others in your community? Do you consider to be comfortable a part of a good welcome? Or do you agree with me that sometimes you can be a little bit uncomfortable but still feel welcome in a new situation? Are there times that you have known you weren't welcome, and other times when you had no doubt in your mind that you were being welcomed into someplace where you were loved?